we're back to look at this second example again of kind of solving this problem. I want to, this is kind of a crude problem in a sense, but basically what I want to do is, I'm going to go up here and we'll go ahead and comment this out. And there we go. Okay. So what I want to do is be able to compare names. And based upon input of any of these names, I want to compare if it's a Niels or not. And as you can see, the input could come in all different variations. Bob Niels, Rebecca Niels, a different length of the name, Arnold Niels, and so on, okay? And so very simply, if I just did Bob Niels for this case, and if it's a Niels, I'm going to compare it to Niels. And if it is, I'll say it's a Niels. And if it's not, I'll say it's not a Niels, okay? For those of you who don't know, I'm Bob Niels. I hope you all know that by now. But anyway, I'm going to use my own name just because, and so on. So let's go ahead and check this out with Bob Niels, okay, and run this problem. And based upon what I just did right there, it's going to say it's a Niels. That's great. You look at me. That's wonderful. I'm a Niels, okay. But if I did this with Rebecca Niels, okay, I'm going to go back over here, grab this. Bring it back up and put Rebecca in here, it's going to probably say it's not a Niels, which is actually wrong because Rebecca is a Niels. All right. I don't know who Rebecca is, but maybe she's a Niels somewhere. All right. What's the problem? It's almost similar to the problem before, correct? Because what I did here is I simply hard-coded the number 4 in here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on. I did a substring and I moved it over here, which moved this Niels to the substring here and everything. And I compared that to the actual word Niels. Okay, but Rebecca is not in the 4th position. 0, 1, 2, 3. And in the 4th position right here, the 4th index, that would have been pulled off. CCA space Niels. Once again, how do I make this dynamic? So we dealt with it with Bob Niels, and we dealt with it with Rebecca. We got to deal with it with Rebecca Niels. It's very similar to the one we had before, where we probably need to find something. What do we need to find in this case? Okay. What do we need to find? Okay. I don't have a comma. What do I need to find? If you said space, you're absolutely right. So in this case here, what I'm going to do is do an index of space. Okay, make sure the space is there. Don't do this. That's null values. Totally different. Space. And actually hit that space key and put that space in there. Now it's going to return that index of where the space is located at. Okay, so I can go ahead and use that index once again. Okay, and if I did this, it's going to return 0, 1, 2, 3. Is that what I want? Okay. So if I did this, it's going to start the index at 3 on, and it'll keep that space there. Okay, is that what I want, or should I do a +1? Okay, let's go ahead and do it. So if I did this with Bob Niels, let's go back to this real fast, and I'll show you. Does this still work? And the answer is it will not, because it's not a Niels, because my index is literally 3. Let's go ahead and debug this, and let me show you this real fast. Let's go back in here, and I put Bob Niels, and I'll press submit. Okay, I know some of you love the debugging tool, and some of you have avoided it like the plague, but if you see, I have Bob Niels sitting right here in my text property. I'm going to hit F11 right there. It takes me down here, and now my string is Bob Niels. I'm going to find that index, okay? F11, after it runs, the index, as you see, is 3. That's perfectly fine. And so after the substring runs, F11, you see it pulled off space Niels, not just Niels. And that way, it's not going to compare the two. Does that make sense? This debugging tool is really cool. Teaches you things very quickly once you get used to it, all right? So what do I need to do? I got to put +1 in here, just almost like what we did before. And if I did that, Bob Niels is going to work out really well, okay? And so here's Bob Niels, and boom, it's a Niels, okay? Did we fix the problem with Rebecca Niels? I believe we have. Rebecca Niels, if I can spell Rebecca. And now Rebecca is now a Niels because it found the space and I made this whole thing dynamic. Beautiful, right? All right, we got this Arnold Niels with all these spaces in there. So let's put that in there, okay? Notice how I'm dealing with one problem at a time, and that's not a Niels. You notice how I'm dealing with one problem at a time? That's a great way to approach this stuff, people. Quit looking at the whole. It gets you overwhelmed. I know you all sit there going, I don't know how to do this, because you take one thing at a time. Just get some small rewards. So I got Bob Niels and Rebecca Niels, but I got this Arnold guy here, all right? Once again, if I sat back and I try to compare it, let's go ahead and put him back in here and look at this. Let's see what I actually have. Arnold goes in there, submit, and if I come here, Arnold, I have all those spaces before it. Okay, so I'm comparing all these spaces, Niels to Niels, because I have all those spaces. It found it, it took it off, it actually did a pretty good job, but I got these spaces. What can I do? What can I do? Any ideas? What can I do? Okay, here's what I can do. Dot trim. I can say take that string and trim it before you actually compare it. Now let's see if Arnold actually works. And we'll put that in there. And boom, Arnold is now a Niels because I trimmed all those previous spaces. Look at this. So now I got 1, 2, 3 techniques in there to actually solve this problem. All right, let's get Sydney Niels in here. This should work pretty well. I only got one space in there. I already took care of it all. Okay, and I put that there, and boom, it's not a Niels because Sydney spelled her name crazy, all right, with N-I-E-L-D-S. Some people put it in differently. Is a lowercase n the same as an uppercase n? Is an uppercase I the same as a lowercase I? The answer is it is not in computer world. Those are two separate characters, and it is case sensitive. You must deal with the case. But what can we do to actually solve this problem? If you go back to the list, not the common list that I gave you, but the first list from tutorials point, you'll find out there's this thing called two upper or two lower that will allow me to compare it apples and apples, okay? So what I may want to do is I'm going to take this text right here, okay, when I move it, and I'm going to make it to either lower or upper. It really makes no difference. See that right there? To lower. And what this is going to do is take all the content on my text text box and make it all lowercase when I move it to my string here. Okay, let's watch this work right here. Okay, and so if I put this in Sydney Niels and press submit, and I do F11, okay, you will see in the string that everything is now lowercase Niels. See how that worked? That's pretty cool. And then what I gotta do, I'm gonna do this for all of them. Then what I'm gonna do is make sure I compare it. Whoops, I gotta end this. I have to compare it to lowercase n. And if I did that, everything should work. Even all the ones I did before, okay? And so on. So I'm gonna take Sydney Niels one more time. Now I made all her input, even though it's wild, I made it all lowercase, and I'm going to compare it to lowercase, and Niels now works. If I put Bob Niels, that works. If I put another name in there, it's a little bit longer. It's the Rebecca Niels, that still works. Okay, if I sit back and put a bunch of spaces out here like this, that still works. Isn't that great? There you go. Now, if I did something stupid like, added things there, we got some more problems. You can only solve for so much, right? And so for the most part, though, we solved the problem. We solved the problem using 1, 2, 3, 4 different methods, string methods, to actually solve the problem. This is what takes practice, but you got to walk into it. Walk into it like I just showed you. Don't try to solve it all at one time. Solve a piece of it, and then go to the next one, and go to the next one. Outside of the two upper, everything is on that common list that I gave you. Okay? You're going to find also in your assignments for this week, okay, that you're going to have to go do something and it's going to require a loop. All right? So we're going to talk about that in the next video a little bit to preface the assignment. Okay?